All right, now we're live. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share it on the Facebook page. So, all right, so feel free to share it on your page on your respective uh, Facebook pages. Oops. Okay, well, all right, so no one's watching at the moment, but the good thing about this is that the good thing about this is that I get to export all the audio and put it upload it to the actual to SoundCloud, so then people who want to listen to it in their cars can do that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So for those who will be no one's watching, but for those who are listening, welcome to the Black Techies podcast. I'm your host David, and I'm joined once again by some pretty lovely people. We got Herb, Tiffany, and Roberto. Like, we got two people back from the dead over here. What's up?
Wakanda forever.
Oh yeah. Look, so speaking of which, next Thursday is my birthday. Govern yourselves accordingly, like I said on my Facebook status. But PayPal is accepted. Right when I wake up, I'm gonna change my background picture to probably of some Black Panther themed background. I don't know, like the whole month of February, it's just gonna be straight Black Panther. But yeah, so if you missed us the previous episode, we talked about Black Panther. So go ahead and click on over if you're interested in that. It's on the Facebook page. It's on the YouTube channel because that's where we recorded, and also it is on your favorite podcast app. So just search for us and you will find us. So all right, let's get started. So continue on the theme of Black superheroes. We started talking about Black Lightning, and so we got this plate of Black heroes coming out. We had Luke Cage last year. I think it was last year or 2016. We had Luke Cage. Now we have Black Lightning. Now we have Black Panthers coming up. So, I think the future is looking bright right now. What you all think?
I think it's honestly, I think it's a really big time in terms of, positive role models and figures for Black, for not just for the comic world and for superheroes, but in terms of, Hollywood in general. We're not seeing a lot of the stereotypical type of stuff that we used to see, although it's still out there. And it's still, you still see it on some level, but, just seeing what's been going on with the Black Panther, all the advanced sales and all that stuff, man, it's really good to see, And I think a lot of folks with Black Lightning thought that, it's like, okay, it's the CW. It may be a little hokey, but it's turned out to be a pretty deep series already, and, they're not shy about pushing the envelope either when it comes to specific types of topics, and addressing specific types of things that are already present in our society now. So it's going to be really cool to see how that series develops. And
it's funny. So when I first saw it, I made a Facebook post and I was like, one of the comments, I was like, it got real quick. Like, I was like, wow, okay, like the first 10 minutes of the show. All right, we just gonna do that. So, but even in the second episode, I don't. Have you all seen? Has everyone seen it? If not, I won't spoil anything.
No spoilers here for the folks in the audience that haven't seen it.
All right, sorry, I won't spoil. I won't spoil it.
Y'all need to watch it. Y'all definitely need to watch it. If you haven't watched it yet, you need to be watching it.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, to get some extra dope Blackness in your life, they also have a Spotify station dedicated to Black Lightning that has all like the theme songs and all like the background music that's playing in the song, because the show has a excellent soundtrack.
Yes.
Especially considering it's not like young people music. You know, it's an older man who's a principal and a father. Yeah. It's got like little standards, little jazz. You know, like it's got a good mix. You know, they went to the 100s, and you know, there's hip hop in it. And I won't go too much into it, but the soundtrack, again, like Luke Cage, you definitely felt it. Which anybody knows in Defenders, whenever they switch to Luke Cage, they'd be playing like Wu-Tang or something. They go to Iron Fist and they'd be playing like elevator music, and they switch to Luke Cage and they'd be like Wu-Tang, Woo, and I was like, oh, okay.
The sound
definitely, man. I think
because when I heard Ed Green come on, I was like, that's what's up.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the added realness to it, because I think from watching, I love The Flash. I've watched all of it. I tried to watch kind of didn't happen for me. I watched Arrow. I watched Riverdale. CW is it's very monotone. It's very monochromatic.
Yeah.
So having a established superhero like Black Lightning be on there was a little scary for me. And then he came on there. I mean, he has a Angela Davis daughter who is of a alternative lifestyle. And
to say it lightly.
He's a mixed family kind of situation right now, where it's like he's still being a strong father, which is odd because he has custody of the kids, and it's different. And he's like positive, and even the bad guys in the show are still like trying to do something positive to a point. It was good. And even when I had a friend of mine that told me, he was like, I don't know, it felt a little heavy, like with the cop situation, and cops don't really do people like that. And I'm like, oh, well, you've never been black before, so I mean, you can just watch the news. Not like they don't roll up and shoot 12-year-olds in the park playing with toy guns, but again, I digress. It's on the CW. You don't really expect that. At most, you would expect like a skate battle or something, or maybe somebody to there would be like a hip hop dance off or something. That's what I expected from the CW, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm sure everybody else here was too.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Roberto was saying, what's interesting about this is that DC, as somebody that puts out comics, has always been at the forefront of really, being inclusive, for Black folks. If you look at the history of the comics that have come out, not only Black Lightning, but you've had minority Green Lanterns, you've had a Black equivalent of Superman when Icon and that comic company was kind of absorbed into DC, and they gave those guys their own universe and their own run, as focal points for in the Marvel universe, not in the Marvel, but in the DC universe. It was really refreshing to see that the CW actually tap into that. And because Roberto's right, it's a little vanilla over there in a lot of ways, but that's that's kind of understandable because the CW is targeting a specific demographic, a specific type of audience with a lot of their programming. But recently we've seen that really, really heavy shift, because I think it's representative of the changing dynamic of this country in general, in terms of who's watching what populations out there that need to be represented and really represented. And it's not just about Black folk either. You got superheroes that are of all ethnicities now, all persuasions, come from all backgrounds. And that's a really cool thing to see. It's something that you really don't get a chance to see a whole lot, in other areas of television. And I think me and Dave touched on this on the previous podcast. We saw, in Black Panther, you see so many things in terms of positive visual representations of not only Black people in general, but the culture of culture that's representative in the movie on the African continent and other societies and in other countries. So, it's good to see that type of trend continue, and I hope that Hollywood and the powers that be in television, understand that, yeah, this is the direction things are going. Let's not forget about it. So, besides the fact, outside of the brand new Black Lightning uniform, that's.
I was wondering how people felt about that. I mean, some people was like, it looks kind of garish, or it's just as corny for some people. Me, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a guy who shoots lightning out of his hand. I can deal with this with the costume.
I mean, but for a man that makes fine suits for a living, that's not a subtle suit at all. And I guess that was kind of his point, because he's been pushing Jefferson to get back out there, and I guess maybe that's like, hey, look, I'm not gonna make you like slick Batman type suit. You got to have a loud Eat at Joe's Looney Tunes cartoon suit. You need to be out there doing your thing, and this is gonna be, no pun intended, a lightning rod for the rest of the community to galvanize a movement of hope.
Yeah, let me
back a little.
let me put a little caveat in here. So, we're talking about Black Panther and Black Lightning and all of the minority superheroes and heroines who are being represented. But for all the people of lighter complexion that's lighter than me watching this or listening, we're not saying, and I've seen this a lot with a lot of white people. Like, a lot of them will think that we're saying that we're trying to push them out, or we're trying to replace them, or we're trying to get rid of like all the white superheroes or anything like that. Even with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, there's a misconception that Black Lives Matter means they're the only ones that matter. That's not what that means. And we're not saying that we don't want to see any of the other white superheroes. In fact, my favorite superhero is Captain America, and he's white. Well, for the most part, sometimes Falcon takes over, but by and large, the Captain America that people think of is Steve Rogers. He's white, and he's my favorite superhero. In fact, shoot, I got a Captain America shirt on right now. So, hey. But so yeah, just for people who are listening or watching, I'm not saying that. We're not saying that. We're just trying to acknowledge the fact that finally we have representation of Black superheroes. That's one good. It's Black Lightning and hopefully Black Panther. They don't suck. It's one thing to have a Black superhero. It's another thing to make a good Black superhero movie or TV show, right? So it doesn't suck. So that's the good thing. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. So,
and real quick, I just want to say shout out to Kamala Khan and Amadeus Cho and America Chavez and all the minorities that Marvel is pushing to the forefront with their new series and stuff. And of course, my namesake Roberto DaCosta, who's the leader of the American Avengers, with Thunderbolt Ross and everybody out there. The new Captain America, who's actually the new Iron Patriot, who's an Asian girl. I can't remember what her name is, but shout out to them for being all included and everybody getting a seat at the table, because we ain't trying to knock the table over. We just trying to do like Solange say, we just trying to get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to be inclined to do a little bit more catching up on the new Marvel landscape. I kind of lost track of it after the new Iron Man was introduced, which I again I thought was really, really cool, to see a genius 15, 16-year-old black girl take on Tony Stark's mantle and be Iron Man. What was really funny about it, but not so funny, was looking at the reactions that those transitions kind of made.
Mm-hmm.
Both inside of the folks that are really heavy in the comic community and folks that are just casual observers. It's just like, okay, well, why are you changing around why does that person have to be this or that? It's like, wow. Type of reactions that a specific community, it was pretty sobering. It's something that tells us that we still got a ways to go yet, before we're really across the board on the same page in terms of interpreting what being inclusive is about, and really appreciating those things in all aspects of our society. So
speaking of being inclusive, Tiffany, did you have anything you wanted to say?
You put on the spot.
I mean, really kind of hitting on all the points that I probably would have made. You know what I'm saying?
So I just wanted to make sure, we haven't heard from you in a while. And I know, we've been kind of chatting. So I just wanted to make sure, you felt heard and all that.
Yeah, I'm just over here agreeing. Like, yeah, I think that too. So.
Okay. Well, since this is technically the Black Techies podcast, any other, let's see, technology related stuff you all want to talk about right quick? Let's see. What I can see.
This is kind of.
How about Sonos? Sonos making that big move, and right in front of the HomePod coming out, they decided to drop the price of their amazing Sonos Play 1, because I have one and that thing's incredible. Instead of it being $200, they're selling 2 of them for $350.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's dope.
And you think they're taking little jabs. They said Sonos has always been open. We've always been promoting an open software, open market. You can stream 22 different streaming music services. You're not going to be locked into one service or one ecosystem. And I'm like, I wonder who y'all talking about. It's $350, the same price as the Apple HomePod? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you all think, is it, all right, clearly, I'm an iPhone guy, but in this whole arena, I really don't think that Apple, they're going to sell HomePods, but you got the Echo and the Home Mini for like what, $30, $50, something like that. I don't know. I just don't know if it's going to compete with Amazon and Google in the whole, and Sonos, like you just said, in the whole smart speaker, Bluetooth speaker category. I don't know. They might, but $350, and they leave off a lot of features. Like you don't have you don't have multi-room support. It says it's coming later this year in a software update, but you can't leave that out right now. That has to be a launch feature. You can't wait to have that.
Well, I think what they're relying on is the actual strength of the brand, to kind of carry them through that point. Because I think sometimes what ends up happening, especially with some of these high-end electronic products, especially when they're behind the curve and somebody else has innovated and kind of leapt ahead, is that they'll introduce a product to get themselves back into the game, and then they'll rely on their customer base to look at their name and say, oh, okay, or I'm used to buying this, or this is a quality product. Let me buy this and see what they do down the line. And you see that with a lot of products. Heck, a lot of times when we talk about our own inferences in terms of cell phones, Amazon, and the iPhone and Apple and their ecosystems and how they go back and forth, they both rely on that. Apple in particular, especially if they're behind the curve on something, they'll rely on the familiarity of their customers with Apple's quality or their ecosystem to say, hey, look, okay, yeah, Apple doesn't have this yet, but I'm familiar with Apple. I'll buy it anyway, and then I'll wait to see what happens.
Yep.
You see that a lot. And I think a lot of companies out there now are starting to, especially the higher end companies, seeing as they're kind of late to the party in a lot of areas in terms of the way streaming and on-demand content is going. They're kind of taking the hint, and they're waiting for their names. They're waiting for the catch up. In terms of catching up to their competitors, but they're relying on their name cachet and their name brand power to kind of tide them through that point. So it's a very good point, because a lot of time, I mean, I looked at the Sonos thing and I was just like, wow, okay. That's good. That's a really good deal. But at the same time, Roberto makes some really good points in terms of, or rather Dave makes some really good points in terms of functionality that's available now, as opposed to functionality that's going to be available down the road, and what's going to sustain them, in between that point. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Are all of y'all rocking with the smart speaker? Everybody got one?
No, I don't have one.
Okay.
My dad has them. So yeah. And he's probably at this very second trying to figure out how he's going to integrate all of his Google Home stuff to use the smart speakers. So I'm pretty sure I'll be getting a call about that this weekend at some point, since I'm the family tech guy. And when folks in the family can't figure anything out in tech, my cell phone is on speed dial.
Yeah, it's the same here. Like, if you major in computer science, you have accepted the mantle of IT professional. That it doesn't matter what it is. Like, my wife will tag me in like every Facebook post where someone's having some tech problem. I'm like, really?
Now, I think there's one other thing, since this is kind of a potluck night in terms of topics. That something that came to mind to me this week that I wanted to really kind of get out there for all of us, for those of you guys out there that are watching the Black Techies. Everybody that is on the Black Techies panel is either a graduate of an HBCU or has really strong ties to an HBCU. And during the course of my travels in the last couple of weeks, myself in particular, I'm looking for technology programs, within the HBCU community that are really on the cutting edge of cybersecurity, some of the more advanced technologies that there are out there in terms of, what's coming in the industries and stuff like that. And I wanted to kind of bring that topic to us as the Black Techies, to see, what's your opinion on in terms of where we are collectively as HBCUs, in this, how can I put it? In this ever advancing environment of technology, in terms of not just educating potential students or prospective students, but actually providing a means for folks that aren't in school, or trying to get back into school to get into the industry or to get into technology industries. I wanted to get get that discussion going and to see, what kind of viewpoints all of us had. So,
I don't, from my experience, like, it's been a minute since I've been in school, but even just looking at the company that I work at has like several different university recruitment teams. And so just looking at the teams for these different schools, the size of the team for each school, I don't think a lot of HBCUs have the corporate relationships, that are necessary to truly service their students in that way, or at least, what I'm saying? Like, we're behind the curve, I guess is the way to see it. Because up here in Michigan, like, when I go to U of M's campus, it's like, oh my gosh, like comparing it to just the resources that they have, you know what I'm saying? Like, on campus in like the mechanical engineering building, versus what we had in our engineering building. Like, I know we don't have the money and all of that, but even I think just building relationships with companies, successful alumni, all of that would propel us to like the next level to be able to service our students, to kind of meet those cutting edge and get some of those cutting edge technologies in our school, as well as prepare people, you know, for their different fields and all of that. So I think that's one of the places where we fall short. Like, because I know we fall short when it comes to money, because, you know, there's just, our alumni don't give back at the same rate as some of these other schools. But I think a place where we could do better for free is in building relationships with people who can help our students move on to the next level.
I think we also have to, those are some very, very good points. And to add to that, I think we it's so many issues with that, because like you said, I mean, we don't have nearly the amount of alumni giving power as some of the larger schools. And I mean, I guess that's in proportion to the gross income of like the total population of African Americans, right? So if it's lower, then obviously you're going to see HBCUs have a lower amount of giving back. Where if that was higher, then obviously HBCUs would probably have more money to burn. Although that said, you do have some HBCUs who are kind of excelling in the tech arena. I mean, for one, I know, if I'm not mistaken, I think A&T, right, and I think Jackson State. I think they're, what are they? Like centers of excellence or something like that for technology. Yeah. So I mean, there are HBCUs that are, now that said, they still might not have the funding, but they have the clout, I guess you could say, because of the amount of engineering and computer science students they're able to churn out, quality students rather. So I mean, I don't know. I think one, we need to get people to support HBCUs as far as potential places of education. Well, I mean, let me back up. One, we need to get computer science and other STEM fields. We need to get that interest more among the black community, and then try to point them towards HBCUs that offer a quality education in those fields. Because especially in the computer field, because there's a lot more money in the computer field. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, technology is always a growing field. There's always going to be a need for someone in computers. So I think I don't know, maybe it's a stepping stone. But you know, if you start them young and then point them, or at least show them that, hey, it is possible to get a quality STEM education at HBCU, then they go there, they graduate, they get a good job, and then hopefully that flows back. Now, I say that as I've slacked myself on giving back to my own HBCUs, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe we're not really taught culturally to give back, and it's more so, you know, just do you. I don't know.
Well, I think, well, first, I think all of those, I mean, those are very good points. You know, which is one of the reasons why I brought this topic, you know, because I know I got some folks here that that have, you know, are in the technology field, have gone through curriculums at HBCUs, you know, that are technology centric. And they have you know, so we have a really good understanding of the challenges that we face, and, you know, some of the things that, you know, HBCUs can do to really kind of enhance that. My personal opinion, you know, when I was at Alabama State, technology, you know, and that was a while ago, obviously, but technology in terms, you know, things in terms of computers, technology was kind of non-existent, you know, and Alabama State, you know, was a state land grant college. You know, there's public help, as well as, you know, some of the challenges that just about every HBCU faces in terms of funding, endowments, getting, you know, building those relationships with the public sector. Now, one of the things that I've noticed in, you know, in my exploration of going back to school, is that you know, some programs like Tennessee State and North Carolina A&T, for example, have really, really, really embraced the idea of distance learning and being able to offer those things and those curriculums to people that would be considered non-traditional students.
Right.
You know, whether that's the adult student, whether that's the international student, or what have you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that, you know, a lot of HBCUs are still way behind the curve on. And I mean, I say that, you know, just in my, you know, my investigations, going to someplace like HU or Howard and asking, you know, the admissions office or somebody in, you know, somebody associated with those programs, hey, what kind of, you know, programs do you have for distance learning or for, you know, for the non-traditional student? And they look at you like you're crazy. You know, it's one of those things that a lot of schools find themselves behind the 8 ball in terms of not only providing that curriculum for current students, but being able to attract prospective students. Because, you know, a lot of students, and like I said, I'll use the DC metro area again as an example. You know, Howard's the Mecca, you got Bowie State, you got Morgan. Although Morgan has a pretty robust, you know, online program, and the same thing with Bowie. But if you put them side to side, like let's say the curriculum for George Mason, okay, from a technology standpoint, you know, just what's offered and what is really perceived as important there is no comparison. And that's something that's a real issue for our schools, because if we really want to be able to point our students into those fields and have them retain the interest in HBCUs, we got to develop curriculums and programs that are attractive. And that's, you know, obviously that's not indicative of every HBCU, because like Dave said, there are, you know, some HBCUs that are really ahead of the curve. Jackson State, North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central actually has a pretty good technology program. Alabama A&M, as I hate to say it because it's A&M, they have a really good STEM oriented program. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, even though as supporters and alumni of HBCUs, we tend to put our schools through the screws in terms of giving back and holding them accountable for improving those processes. Personally, I think there's got to be a little bit of give and take. You know, yeah, alumni need to be able to give back and to give back more than they do, but at the same time, you can't just count on that. You know, you have to be able to, you have to be able to embrace those technologies and have that foresight to say, hey, look, this is where our society is going. We really need to start engaging in programs that are going to, one, attract, you know, students that are interested in STEM and that can raise the profile of our university, and two, you know, to be able to offer a service to students that may not be in the traditional profile of the typical HBCU student. And
actually, let me go ahead and finish.
I think I think that's very important, and that's something that you know, the more we look at, you know, places like, you know, even community colleges, like, you know, again, in our area, Northern Virginia Community College, you know, you look at their curriculum for information technology, cybersecurity, information security, and you're like, wow, you know, they've got more of a curriculum than a lot of our HBCUs do. And they, you know, they're operating on the same type of resource budget that a lot of our public HBCUs.
Right.
So, you know, that's something that, you know, that part of the equation is where, you know, our institutions and our schools have to have a little bit more foresight and being able to attract that type of talent, you know. And like I said, some areas, you know, you might have to develop more of a relationship with the private sector. I know, speaking for HBCUs in this area, well, not speaking for HBCUs, but looking at places in this area, I mean, you could shake a stick at just about, you know, you can spit anywhere and form networks and relationships with private and public sector, you know, partners to be able to develop that stuff. So
actually, that's actually what the NSA did. When I was at A&T, they actually like I think they go to the career fair like every year, and I know several A&T students who now work at the NSA because of it, and so actually yeah, I think that whole Centers of Excellence thing, I think it's an NSA thing, or the NSA has a separate like category for schools who have some level of excellence in technology or something like that. But to go back to your point, I wonder if there's a way to kind of leverage our unique culture and kind of marry that with technology to kind of bring people in. And the reason I say that is because I'll use A&T as an example, only because I went there, so I only know about them in Tennessee State. So, but A&T actually has a class called Computational Hip Hop and Object-Oriented Design. I'm looking at it right now. So basically, it says this course introduces students to the fundamentals of UML, the Unified Modeling Language, from a hip hop perspective. And so students will learn how to use UML to reverse and forward engineer design artifacts for hip hop music and software applications. So like you have a whole class that teaches you UML, but it applies it to hip hop. Like who does that? No one does that except A&T. So like, but you could only get that kind of educate, that kind of class at an HBCU, because it's probably more relevant in the Black community than a predominantly white college. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that you probably won't see that at a white school. So I wonder if something innovative like that kind of marries cultural Black culture with technology, that might kind of help attract people who might not otherwise be interested in it. Like, say you might be kind of interested in programming, but you really like hip hop, and you see this class, you're like, I wonder what that's about. So I don't know, maybe, since we don't have all the money in the world, and like you said, our budgets are almost like community colleges. So it's like, all right, how can we then innovate and do something different that no one else is doing to kind of make up for that lack of funds? So,
well, I think, and I think that last point is a very, very, very good point. One of the things, like I said, in my opinion, technology is the answer to that, because a lot of the schools that I've seen that are able to put forward those types of curriculums and be able to delve into those sorts of topics and subject matter, for potential students and for students that are already there, they're doing so in terms of distance education and in terms of, targeting, people that are either students that are already focused on getting into that field, or they're targeting the non-traditional student, which is that, that adult let's say that adult that's already in information technology or in some sort of technology field and wants to go back to school and wants to, enhance their earning potential, or that person that's trying to change careers, and wants to go back to school, or, the student that is, the international student that, comes here and looks for an affordable solution to do just that. And, in my opinion, HBCUs have a unique opportunity to really, really tap into that, because there's probably at this point in time in the history of our country that, frankly, I don't think there's a more diverse time than now in terms of our country, in terms of our demographics changing, and in terms of, potential talent coming to this country and being able to, go to schools and offer that and return it back into those communities. And I think HBCUs have a unique opportunity to really tap into that, because honestly, that's, if you look at the missions of most HBCUs, that's part of the mission. It's part of it to be able to, to offer that sort of education, to just about anybody that, wants to have access to it. Back in the day, it was just us because we didn't have access to it. But as the mission for most HBCUs have grown and evolved over time, those minority bases have evolved too, to not just include Black folks, but to include other minorities that may, be phased out of that, out of that opportunity to earn that slice of the pie. So I think it's very important, to, for our universities to be able to recognize and have a little bit more forethought, to see where these industries are going and to see exactly how they can start attracting, more talent.
I think also what has to happen, I mean, I used to work for Cutco when I was a teenager, and we would go to, like, campuses. We would just tell them, like, hey, we want to come to your campus and do a career fair. And they'd be like, oh, okay. There was little paperwork done with that. And even at my job now, there's a ton of people at my job that went to Georgia Tech. There's a couple of kids at my job that go to KSU right now. And Kennesaw State University isn't like a big university. Chattahoochee Tech isn't a big university, but somehow, some way, there's a table for my IT department set up there to pull students from there. And I'm wondering if they're not pulling students from other places, because, I mean, if Georgia State has something, they'll go there. I think they've sent somebody out to UGA, like all the way out to Athens to check it out, but they're going to Life University and Chattahoochee Tech. Why can't they go to Spelman or Clark Atlanta or Morehouse? I mean, I think the problem with that is that there's nobody representing in the boardroom or even in the think tank meeting in mid-management to say, hey, you know what else is a good school? We have the AUC right there. There's 3 colleges right there, ripe with talent. And you could just, it's one, you can kill one bird with 2 birds with like a million stones and just knock everything out in one thing. Like, you don't think about that because no one is, I've told people I went to Morehouse, and as prestigious as I think that is, I've told people at my job and they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
They don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And like, somebody has to be able to say, like, be in that room and say, hey, look, you know what I think we should do? I think like springtime, we should probably go out there, set up a table. I mean, information technology is going to be, is huge right now, and that's going to be huge going forward. So why don't we have a table set up over there? And if anybody wants to argue about it, you say, look, we need diversity hires. Let's go out there and try to find, like, the best people that we can possibly find, regardless of what color they are. If you really want to give that a chance, you should probably go somewhere. If you're going to go to a predominantly white institute, you should go to a predominantly black institute. Go to a mixed institute. I mean, Georgia Tech is sort of mixed, but we're there all the time, and I don't know how that goes about, like, with how they pull students from there. But I know for a fact that they've never been to any of the, like, black colleges in Georgia, or even to the extent of saying, like, well, why don't we go to Atlanta Tech or the junior colleges here. We have a ton of JUCOs here that somebody would definitely have the opportunity to say, like, hey, I'm working in information sciences right now, in computer sciences, information technology. I'm learning, like, coding, and it would be great if I could work somewhere, even if I'm just doing regular, like, IT work, not necessarily hardware-wise, but like software, trying to figure out what's wrong with a retail system point of sale. If I can get into that and look at that and have real-world application to what I'm doing, that would make me way better at what I'm doing. And also, representation would then pull back other people from our community to say, like, oh, well, that's not just something, and I hate to even say that, but I've asked kids, like, yo, why don't you want to do computers? And they're like, well, I thought that was, like, for, like, Asian kids or Indian kids. Like, I don't know anything about computers. I'm like, no one's born with that information. You have to have the opportunity. But again, it's just like no one ever thought that I could be president or you can be president or anybody that looks like us could be president until Barack did it. So, I mean, there has to be kind of a cycle of implementation where somebody from up top has to say, let me go reach back. And somebody at that bottom has to look at his friends and say, hey, look, did you know that there's this technology field out here and you don't have to be a business management major and try to go, like, run a McDonald's or something? You can actually go do something and build something and create something of your own. You don't have to go use someone else's dream. You can build your own stuff. And I think that's kind of what's lacking in the message anyway, is that it's like, oh, it's IT. You're going to be like, the weird guy from Office Space and worry about your stapler. Like, no, there's cool, fantastic things you can do with IT that I don't think anybody is really putting that message out there to the kids. So I asked my kids about it, and they're looking at me like, ooh, me and my wife are in IT. And my kids are just like, well, I don't know. I don't want to. I mean, my son is 6 and he wants to be, you know, he still wants to be Captain America. My daughter, she's going to be a doctor. So, like, they're like, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have money. I'm going to, like, have a yacht. Like, okay, well, what about something more realistic where you can build something where you don't have to be at work all the time? You can build a team. You can have the first majority black, you know, firm that sends out and contracts people to do specialized programming, or even just to be in there and say, like, okay, well, I'm trying to reach a certain demographic with this app that I'm making. Instead of having to have, again, instead of having 20 white guys in a room trying to figure out what they remember from the Chappelle Show, you can have a living, breathing black person in that room that knows how to code, that can actually say, hey, putting that kid in a monkey hoodie is not a good idea. How about we do this instead? Somebody that has some kind of common sense.
I think what you're saying, Roberto, like shows how many different ways underrepresentation bites us in the ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, on one hand, you have these companies that don't know about our schools to go and recruit there, because none of us are at the company, or at least none of us are in the room where they're making these decisions. You know what I'm saying? And because we are underrepresented in certain fields, our kids don't know to aspire to be, you know, whatever that is. And because we're underrepresented in, you know, the marketing room, you do have little black boys with shirts that say they the coolest monkey in the jungle or whatever. So, I mean, I guess when I was listening to you talk, like all these different points that you touched on just show like underrepresentation like is I don't know, it's such a cyclical problem because we don't have the people there, so you know we can't attract people, and it's just I don't know, like I don't even know what that's just what stood out to me, I guess, about what you're saying. And so many times on the podcast, whenever we're talking about something, it's always about oh we're finally getting some representation in whatever arena. Tonight we're getting representation in black superheroes. I know we've talked about black gaming characters or female gaming characters, female in STEM. So I don't know. It's just we got to do something to be able to make every portion of our lives be more representative of our society as a whole.
Yeah,
I wonder. Go ahead.
It's 2018, and we're still having the first female this, and the first black this, and the first Latina this, and it's kind of like it's bittersweet because you're like, oh man, that's amazing. Wait, really? That's the first.
Exactly.
It's the first time we've ever had a black woman be mayor of that place, or the first time we've ever had a black woman congresswoman. In how? Yeah. Okay, whatever, cool. That it's fine. Whatever, we'll take it. We'll keep going with that.
Somebody has to be the first, right? So, I mean, I wonder if the whole problem of us not being able to advertise, if you will, black people being in those fields. I wonder if it's because I don't know. Maybe it's not being put out front and center, like in the media, on TV, because. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure all of us used to watch A Different World. And like how many people went to an HBCU because they saw A Different World and they thought Hillman was a real college. And so, but you know, I know Will Smith on The Fresh Prince and Cliff Huxtable, they both used to wear HBCU like paraphernalia. And so they wore it all the time. And so, you know, you would see like, oh, what's Howard? Oh, let me Google Howard. Or, you know, let me look up Howard. Oh, this is cool. So how many people went to an HBCU simply because that's what they saw on TV? So I don't know. I mean, we were talking about black superheroes, you know, on the show Arrow, you have, you know, Mr. Terrific. I'm not necessarily a fan of his character, but that's just me. But at the very least, you know, you got a guy who is one very, very intelligent. I mean, along with Felicity, he's like the you know, the techie guy of the bunch. That's a whole nother episode as far as how Arrow handles technology. But I'll save that for the next episode. I have a rant coming in for that one. But yeah, so I mean, so we need, I don't know, I guess maybe we need more of that and more of the even if we need like a whole show, a whole TV show on like one of the four main networks just on like some black nerds. I don't know, something something that just kind of puts it out there front and center that makes people want to say, oh well, hey, that looks cool. Let me check that out. So
yeah, we need another School Days and not another stepping movie. Even though, I mean, that's me. I like watching. Me and my wife were watching Living Single, and every episode Khadijah had on a Black and Proud, Morris Brown shirt, a Howard shirt, you know, like, and I was like, man, you know what I think? And like watching Martin, same way, cross colors, had a Black by Popular Demand shirt on, and I'm just like, we don't really do that anymore. And I think it's now it's almost like you really have to like flaunt it, your blackness, because you know, if I wore a White and Proud shirt, then I would be okay. We get it. Like if we can't even have a monopoly on being underrepresented, I don't know what we can have. We was underrepresented first. I mean, like, you know, my parents are Italian. Like, okay, stop. Like, I get it. I understood what happened when Rocky came out. Eddie Murphy Raw explained that perfectly to me. But if like watching my son, like looking at my son and be like, oh man, like he loves Spider-Man. So do I. A nerdy kid from Queens. I'm a nerdy kid from Queens. And then watching him like light up when I was showing him the like Black Panther comic book, he was like, Daddy, that dude, like, he's in Africa and he's black and he's rich? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's pretty cool. I've never seen a guy like that before. And I was like, a black guy that's like, and he was like, yeah, because Batman's not black and he's rich. And I'm not sure what connection he's making there, but I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's representation, because that absolutely matters. Like watching Runaways, and there's a diverse cast of kids that are all friends, that are all wealthy, that are all intelligent. You know, like that to me is like, well, if you've always been represented, none of that it sounds stupid. Because even talking about it with my coworkers, they're like, okay, so there's a black guy that's a superhero. I mean, how many of these movies are you going to crank out? There's been like 20 Marvel movies last week. Why is this one such a big deal? Because there's a black guy in it? And,
yeah, well, I think that,
yeah,
I think, I mean, to be quite honest with you,
Neil deGrasse Tyson is a big deal because he's a black scientist and everybody listens to him. Like, you don't get it when you're starving for anything and somebody throws something out there and it's actually good. You have no idea how good it is when you've been eating all day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's a big difference that you can't possibly understand if you've never been the hungry man at the table, right? Struggling. So I absolutely agree with Tiffany. Like it's a whole problem in the entire cycle of what's going on, because there's nobody at top trying to pull people back down from the bottom. There's nobody at bottom believing that this is something for them. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody in the middle. The people were us in the middle who are working in the like IT fields, working in the intelligence fields that are like, well, we could tell other people we do this. Like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm in IT. Oh, yeah, that's right, Dave. You were always good at math in high school. So yeah, that makes sense. I can't do that because I sucked at math. I'm an English major. Right. Like, no, I'm an English major and I'm I work in IT. You don't have to be, I mean, you know, like we're not going to talk about Arrow, but you don't have to be Felicity to know how to work a computer and somehow hack everything from a laptop, but whatever, you know.
I think that might be the next episode. Like, I swear, like like they got Felicity up there hacking the NSA and stuff. I'm like, really? That's no.
Let me,
But
yeah,
all right, no, go ahead.
Pass me my cell phone. I gotta hack NASA real quick.
Come on.
I want to piggyback off of what Roberto was just saying, man. I'm so tired, and I know this is kind of a mini detour / rant, but I am so tired of seeing shows that take one tiny minute aspect of being at a HBCU and just completely contort it to where it's like, okay, it's almost a caricature. Well, I mean, for those of us that, I marched in the band when I was at Alabama State. So it's really kind of sensitive to me when I see something like that kind of repeated that process. Like we saw it with Drumline, obviously, where, they've taken.
Hey, David wasn't Drumline. You got to be sensitive.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen, I
actually wasn't in Drumline. I wish I was, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
I still play with them.
But I think folks, and I think David kind of gets it, being in a program and having to see, what you go through on a daily basis, kind of being juxtaposed and kind of, watered down to its most basic point and put on the screen, and I think that's kind of what we've seen with this glut of, shows that have really, kind of taken one small aspect of what the HBCU experience and what HBCU culture is all about, and just turn it into this one big. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just, when I watch shows like The Quad, it just makes me want to just stick my all the way down my throat and just throw up.
Hey, Herbert, I'll help you out. If anybody's having a hard time figuring out how they're doing us in terms of representation on HBCUs, think about what it's like being a nerd and trying to explain that to somebody by telling them to watch one episode of Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, but I think that's actually a very good tie into what we're talking about, because sometimes those stereotypes and those caricatures kind of bleed their way over into real life, and they do so in a way that we don't readily see, when we're on the job or we're dealing with colleagues at work or in other environments. Because a lot of times when we talk about our schools and our experiences, folks outside of that culture don't necessarily give that any credence. And I know personally, I've seen that and experienced it, working, I've been a contractor for 20 plus years for the federal government, in various places and various functions. And I've seen that where I've come up against folks that are graduates from Mason or from Georgetown or from wherever. And they'll look at you saying, "Oh, you went to Alabama State," and then turn around and not have a clue how to do their job or how to solve a problem or how to do, get to point A to point B on a project. And I think that's something that, fortunately for a lot of us that work in this area, in the DC metropolitan area, there's a huge representation of HBCU talent and alumni and support. So that's not necessarily that big of a problem here anymore. But in places where I've gone to, I know I traveled out to Denver last year for my job. And, I had a conversation along those lines. And, first thing that one of the folks there, told me is like, okay, well, I've never heard of Alabama State University. Okay, that's fine. So it's an HBC. Oh, it's one of those schools.
That's like, what they said.
What do you mean it's one of those schools? And what does that have to do with with the job and what we're talking about? Just that came up in conversation. What does that mean? Where did you go to school at?
That's almost as bad as you people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, and
one of them schools.
Yeah, and I had to. And I mean, quite frankly, I had to catch myself because, in certain places in this country, you generally have people that have never ever been exposed to it, and that's something that is very, again, it's very sobering. It's a sobering thought to go someplace, whether it's in the South or in the Midwest or in the West, and have somebody that hasn't even heard of a Grambling or a Howard or any HBCU or Morehouse, or Spelman or Meharry Medical College or what have you. And those sorts of things kind of bleed over into perception and how, folks in our fields are perceived in terms of how they do their jobs, or how, what kind of expertise and how capable they are in terms of, doing specific types of tasks and performing. And a lot of it is very subtle, but it's still there. And it's something that, I didn't really think that I would see that after getting out of school and getting out of the military, but, I've seen it a lot. And it's something that, at some point in time, sooner or later, if you're in technology and, you've gone to an HBCU, or even if you haven't, you'll see that type of, and I don't want to use the word bias, because that's a very, you have to understand when to use that. But I would say you'll see that type of misconception and preconception and assumption about, not only our institutions, but people. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we really have to start, that's something that our institutions have to really start combating. And, that ties into this conversation because technology is one of those fields where, knowledge is the ultimate leveler of the playing field. Meaning that, yeah, you went to Grambling and that guy may have gone to UCLA, but if you're kicking us behind in terms of doing your job, that's going to change real quick. And that's where knowledge and expertise can serve to be a springboard for a lot of us in terms of our institutions and in terms of getting kids, into our institutions, into our STEM fields, and into the industries that we need to get them into. So I think that's a really, Roberto, that was a really good time, because I think that has a lot to do with what we're talking about tonight. And crickets.
It's like that conference call where you're waiting for everybody else to talk, and you're like, okay, well, he's about to talk. Let me shut up.
Right.
No, I think I think that everyone made actually, I got cut off for a bit for some odd reason. But I probably need to invest in one of those wireless mesh networking thingies, Google Home or something. Not Google Home. Yeah, Google Wi-Fi rather. But I think everyone's kind of made some really good points as far as what the problem is, how we can address the problem, and I mean it's a lot of work to do, and it's a lot of awareness that needs to be brought up. And I'm hoping that maybe we could hopefully do our part as the Black techies, most of whom come from HBCUs. Hopefully we can use our platform to kind of put it out there, and hopefully as this continues to grow, more and more people will kind of see, oh look, you got a whole YouTube channel or a whole podcast just for people who like me, who like technology. So but before we wrap up, because it's about that time for me, anyone have any last statements, any parting words?
I guess I'll start. First, for the 5 followers that we might see on YouTube, or the 2 followers we might see on Facebook feeds, thank you for following us. We are still in our infancy, but the content is going to get a lot better. It's already good, but the best is yet to come. So thank you for following us and listening to us. We'll still have our same audio podcast on SoundCloud. And for anybody that is, knows us and wants to be on the show, please let us know, because we'll be welcome to have you.
All right, Tiffany, Roberto.
For me, excellent talk tonight, guys. A lot of good points were brought out.
As always.
Yeah, I think just I'm issuing a challenge to myself, I guess, as well as everybody else, all of us who kind of come from these HBCUs and we see what our deficiencies are. We definitely have to do the work to try to step up and make it happen. So one of the things I definitely got to start doing is donating more, try to do it regularly, because we all know how much that can help. So that's really it. And to everybody else out there who might be considering a career in tech, like, we're complex people, so don't let the stereotypes that we see on TV run you away from what can be a very lucrative and enjoyable field.
Yep.
Oh, I see that Roberto's finally in the chair. Yeah. All right, finally made it back home.
Finally back home. No, definitely. Herb and Tiffany made a great points, multiple points in there about like how we need to do our part and how things need to change, and we need to be the engineers of that change. I definitely, I'm one of the people. I love TV. I love movies. I've watched Revenge of the Nerds, all 13 of them, because back in them days they always made like 45 sequels of movies. I've seen The Big Bang Theory. I've seen, the stupid movies like Pixels where they're like, oh, this guy plays video games, he's a loser. Now, whatever. I've seen all that stuff make fun of nerds. I mean, and really, if you want to be honest, like right now, nerds are fashionable. They're making movies for us. I mean, and also shout out to Logan for getting nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah.
That's huge. Comic book movie getting nominated for an Oscar. Never thought I'd see the day, but
outside of special effects.
Yeah, exactly. It's really costumes and special effects. I mean, but that don't count because Suicide Squad got nominated for something and they don't deserve it.
Didn't they win? Didn't they win that? I forgot.
I think they won that Oscar for like best costume design for Enchantress. Enchantress and Harley, I think, was another one of the examples they used, and I was like, a T-shirt and some shorts?
Right.
Really? Cool, whatever. And shout out to Will Smith for somehow being able to just play yourself in a mask and get paid for playing Deadshot. That was amazing. Boy, you was Mike Lowry in a mask. Money.
Pretty much.
I need to go to Hollywood and start giving me some of his money. But now, realistically, I feel like it's hard to. And I always say this to my wife. My wife's always like looking at me when I say this, but sometimes it's hard being black. Because you feel like you want to say something about like the situation, the condition, and then you feel like once you say it, people are going to be like, this guy is talking about the. I mean, Jesus, you guys just had Barack. What more do you want from us? Like you look on the TV, all the famous people are black. I mean, look at all the guys and like, you mean all the athletes, or all the rappers and singers and like, but I mean, I've looked at C-SPAN, looked at Congress. And I don't think anybody in there is under the age of 100, A, and B, like, I see like a handful of people. And then when you get a handful of people, you get like the Maxine Waters that stand out because they're like, yeah, well, I'm not really here for the BS. I'm here to make my voice heard. That's why you have me. I mean, you guys don't need to talk amongst yourselves because all of you guys have the same agenda. You're all the same guy. What are you, a lawyer? Yep. Lawyer. Yep. You went to Harvard. You went to Yale. You guys all run in the same circles. Your dad owns Exxon or some crap like that. So, of course, you want everything the way that you want it. But I think there needs to be a shift where and I think we've been saying this for years, where, I mean, I think Nas is one of the greatest poets that I can think of in my lifetime, or somebody that I remember even just reading stuff. I did a 6-page paper on It Was Written, and my teacher was like, "Wow, that's pretty impressive. I didn't think about Nas in this regard." And while I love that, I'm wondering, like, what about, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and what about us learning about our heroes that are alive right now, the Maxine Waters, the Michelle Obamas, who she doesn't get enough credit. I mean, the people who are striving for change. Colin Kaepernick's still out there, even though they don't want to give him a job, and he's better than half the dudes that was in the playoffs. But what about representation from somebody that's standing for something? I mean, Floyd Mayweather is cool. He's arguably one of the best technical boxers in the world, but he's a piece of shit human being. And what has he ever done to stand up when something's going wrong? Like, so what do you feel about X, Y, and Z? Oh, man, I don't know nothing about that, man. I just came out here to box and get this money.
We're sorry, FCC. I know we got the net neutrality thing coming on. We still
right. But our bad. I just feel like we need more diverse, complex representations of ourselves. We're a 3-dimensional, fully faceted people. Even the 4 of us right now, we all have the same interests. We kind of work in the same jobs. We have the same, but we're all completely different. And I think I'm sick and tired of just seeing us painted as the light-skinned good guy in a Tyler Perry movie, or the dark-skinned bad guy, or like, there's more. And I thank God for people like Jordan Peele, who was able to get a complex, thrilling movie in Get Out made and have it be something that was so shocking that everybody was kind of like, what was this? There wasn't a guy in a mask hunting down horny teenagers at a camp. It's actually something that's realistic and dark and gritty, but hilarious and human all at the same time. And I just want to make sure that going forward, I want to make sure that we push past all the stuff that we've done before, and we make sure that we are represented properly. We make sure that we carry ourselves properly, because we have to. We got to run twice as hard to get half as far and all that stuff. But we need to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable for what it is that we're supporting and what it is that we're creating for ourselves.
All right, so I don't know how I can follow that, but actually, I'll just end by saying that, and I actually just realized that my mic was on. It's actually, I think it's backwards, so I have no idea how I sound, but during the podcast, I think I might have actually sounded far away, because I had the cardioid pattern on a different pattern. But I'll say that thank you for those who, like Herb said, thank you for those who have stuck with us this year. It's been a year. Yes, I just realized that it's been a year. So happy anniversary. So thank you for those who have stuck with us. Like Herb said, we're still in our infancy. We're only 1 year old. We got to get into the terrible twos. But just stick with us. We definitely got more content coming. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell, so that every time we're live, every time we post a new video, you'll definitely get that notification. If you're listening in your car or listening to the audio podcast, thanks for subscribing. Make sure you tell your friends, uncles, parents, baby mamas, all of them. Tell them to subscribe to the Black Techies and the YouTube channel. You said what?
That was my bad. That was my phone.
Oh. I'll say my baby mama ain't gonna listen to me.
But yeah. So thanks for sticking with us. I think that's all I have to say. That was my phone. But so I guess until then, oh, actually, well, since Dominique isn't here, I guess I have to say his traditional ending. So I hope you all have an excellent rest of the week. And by this time next week, or by the time this next podcast comes, he might not be in office. So we'll see.
Get your dashikis. Weeks, you'll be able to join the kingdom. Hail Wakanda. Hail Wakanda.
That's right. That's right. So in what 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, I think it comes out.
3 weeks.
So go out and watch and buy a ticket. Don't please don't bootleg this movie. Do not bootleg this movie. Go and spend your money and buy it and see this movie.
If you got a Cody box, if you got a streaming box, leave that alone. Go to
You're not going to be able to see it.
Yes, don't hit homie up out the back of his trunk selling the DVDs of the Korean copy of the movie. Please, go to the theater and support.
Let Ryan Coogler get his money for this well-directed movie.
Yeah, cosplay, get your afros, get your dashikis. I don't care. Just go to the movie and buy a ticket. Have fun. Hail Wakanda.
Hail Wakanda.
Hail Wakanda. All right, and with that, I'll see you all. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.